And just before the clock strikes 12, I am 3 for 3 on my Sunday wildcard playoff picks. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the show. Today, we're going to be talking about the 3 games that did just occur this Sunday with the Washington Commanders against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Denver Broncos versus the Buffalo Bills, and the last game being the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Green Bay Packers. The first game we're going to talk about specifically, which has been the best game of the whole playoffs, because this playoffs has been honestly been a dud. We're going to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Washington Commanders. This game was close. It was tight the whole game. It was 10-10 at half. Both teams were even. I have it in my notes. Specifically, we're going to talk about the Commanders, the first team. Shout out to the Washington Commanders. I'm a Dallas fan. I despise anybody in our division, but we had to give props where props is due. The Commanders have not won a playoff game since 2005. It has been a long time coming for Washington Commanders fans, and I know their fan base is very happy to see this day. They have their franchise guy, JAYDEN DANIELS. He had a good game. He didn't have a crazy a highlight reel game. He wasn't sensational tonight by any means, but he did what he needed to do when he needed to do it to put his team over the hump. His stat line tonight was 24 for 35, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He really didn't get much out of the run game altogether. They had 33 carries for 82 yards, 2.5 yards a carry. But he did get a lot of production out of Dyami Brown and Terry McLaurin, with 5 catches for Dyami Brown for 89 yards, and the same thing for Terry McLaurin, but he has 7 receptions for 89 yards. The Washington Commanders stalled on a lot of their offensive plays, or their offensive drives. Correct me. If I'm not mistaken, I think they were 2 for 5 on 4th down tonight. Maybe 3 for 5, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I just remember at one point, the Washington Commanders was 2 for 4 on 4th downs. Yeah. So the Commanders were 3 for 5 on 4th down. The Commanders all night were finishing and stalling their drives on Tampa Bay side of the field. There was a lot of 4th and 3s. I remember he went for 4th and 5 was the last one he went for. That was pretty long because it was a 56-yard field goal. But Coach Dan Quinn was really aggressive today. I feel like he didn't trust his kicker. And he went into the mindset like, hey, we're on the road. This is an away playoff game for us. We have nothing to lose. We are going to go for it on 4th down. And he set the tone the whole game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in contrast, did not go for it for 4th down at all. But he went for it on 4th down. He completed over 50% of the time, exactly having 60%. It worked out in his favor. They clutched up when they needed to clutch up. But they had a lot of problems stalling drives. I know at one point during the game, Jayden Daniels was getting heated up in the first half. He didn't seem comfortable, especially with the blitz. He was throwing little short dink and dunk throws that was skipping the wide receivers. But give credit to Jayden Daniels. He bossed up, and when he needed to make plays, he made plays. And shout out to the Washington Commanders. They are going to be playing against the Detroit Lions next week. It is going to be a tall ask, but I'm sure Commanders fans are glad that they finally are going to get to even getting a playoff win. But overall, and also on their defensive side of the ball, their defense made plays when they need to. They played exceptional defense, giving up only 20 points. But to get on the Buccaneers side of things, they lost the game. Baker Mayfield, you cannot fumble the football. You cannot fumble the football. Look, you're down. You were up 4. The score was 13-17. You just forced the Commanders to turn the ball over on 4th down. You had the ball on your own 10-yard line. Mike Evans on 3rd down makes an exceptional stretch over to get the 1st down. You got a fresh set of downs, and you fumbled the football. It says it right here. It was an awful turnover, and Baker Mayfield statistically had more than Kirk Cousins or was tied with Kirk Cousins for the most fumbles this year in the NFL. It is unacceptable, Baker. You cannot do that. you cost your team the game. And when you were down 17-20 on the opposite end of the field, even though this ain't your fault, Graham Barton screws up the snap count on third down, and it causes you to lose 6 yards. So you instead of 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, you got 4th and 6, 4th and 7. And you have to kick the field goal to tie it up 20-20. And then Jayden Daniels walks the dog and wins the Commanders the ball game. That was the story of the game. Baker Mayfield was the same as Jayden Daniels. He didn't blow my socks off, but overall he was 15 for 18, super efficient, 185 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, but he had a turnover. That turnover ended up being the biggest dominating factor in the game. It's the offense in the first half for the Bucs was lackluster, but in the second half, it seemed like they were running the ball way more effectively in the second half than they were the first half. They had the Commanders right where they wanted them. You could tell the Commanders were getting tired defensively. Bucky Irvin and Rachaad White was getting it going in the run game and pounding the rock. But the two biggest miscues on offense ended up biting them. Defensively, the Bucs did all they could do. They did the best they did. They held them to 23 points. That should win you a ball game in the playoffs if your offense shows up. The offense for the Bucs lost in the game. I hate it for Baker. I feel like Baker's been great. I feel like he has resurrected his career. But at the end of the day, he didn't show up when his team needed him to show up. And in contrast, Jayden Daniels did. That was the story of this game. And just to get stats for Bucky Irvin, altogether, the Bucs had 25 carries for 101 yards, averaged 4 yards a carry. Bucky Irvin averaged 4.5 yards a carry. Mike Evans had 3 receptions for 92 yards. There wasn't much production out of the passing game outside of Mike Evans for the Bucs, and they relied heavy on the run game. But at the end of the day, Baker and the Bucs didn't do enough on offense to get it done, and Jayden Daniels did when he needed to the most. Shout out again to the Washington Commanders. Tampa Bay, they are going to be back next year. I'm sure they're going to get some offensive weapons back. I'm sure Chris Godwin is a free agent this offseason. I'm sure they're going to want to take care of him and give him a re-signed contract after he suffered a horrible injury in the beginning of the year. But Tampa Bay will be back. They will be fighting for another playoff spot next year. I'm sure they're going to be probably the favorites to win the division because that division is still bad going into next season. But it's going to be interesting how the Commanders play against the Lions. Now, the next game we're going to be moving on to the main game that I really want to talk about, the Packers versus the Eagles. And I'm just going to say it. Jordan Love was awful. He was awful. All day, all game. He legit got his whole wide receiving core legitimately killed. All he did was throw errand footballs all night. Statistically, Jordan Love was 20 for 33, 212 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a 41 quarterback rating. He was awful. Specifically on defense for the Green Bay Packers, they did the best they could. Defensively, they played a whole lot better than what I expected them to. And I'm sure a lot of other analysts around the league they thought the Packers played exceptional defense than what they expected them to do. And Jordan Love was terrible today. From him running out of the pocket, throwing throws that are not even close to anybody, not reading the field well, throwing into triple and double coverage, it was just all around terrible. Granted, they suffered a lot of injuries this game. Especially mainly for the Packers, they suffered a lot of injuries just during this game. Specifically at the wide receiver position. At one point, Jayden Reed, and if I'm not mistaken, Dotavian Wicks was not even available. But at the end of the day, Jordan Love was bad. Josh Jacobs did his part running the ball. He had 18 carries for 81 yards, averaged 4.5 yards a rush. But look at the receiving stats. Their leading receiver was Jayden Reed with 4 catches for 46 yards. That's not good enough. That's terrible. Jordan Love single-handedly cost the Packers this ball game. It's your team goes in the Lincoln Financial Field. You're on the road. It's the playoffs. First round of playoffs. You cannot show up after you just got your bag and play like this. It's unacceptable. Be competitive. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, the Eagles did not blow my socks off by any means. At one point, the game was 16-10. It was a winnable game for the Packers. Altogether, offensively, the Eagles didn't wow me. You had the very first opening drive where the Packers turned the ball over on the opening kickoff, and so they were able to just get a gimme touchdown already. It was 7-zip early in the game. But since then, the Eagles did nothing on offense. They scored 12 points in the next 3 quarters. Statistically, Jalen Hurts was 13 for 21, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Jalen Hurts was in cruise control all game. He didn't wow me, but again, he relied heavy on the run game. Saquon Barkley had 25 carries for 119 yards, averaged 4.8 yards per carry. And Jalen Hurts used his legs when he needed to get out of the pocket and make plays. Receiving the ball, their highest receiver was Devontae Smith, had 4 catches for 55 yards. That is all the receiving that the Philadelphia Eagles had. It was just mediocre offensively, in my opinion. But to give credit to the Eagles, defensively, they showed up like they need to. Zach Bond got him an interception off of course, an errant throw by Jordan Love. But they played exceptional defense. They locked down the rush in the first half, but they weren't able to do that as much in the second half. And the Packers were reeling on them for the longest time, but they were able to stand tall and get some interceptions and turn the ball over. And they stood their ground, and they were able to capture their team a dub. After offensively, the Eagles really wasn't shocking, but they needed to do what they needed to do when they needed to do it. When they needed a play, they made plays. The Packers didn't do that. Jordan Love didn't do that. I know a lot of it had to do with injuries for the Packers, but at the same time, Jordan Love cannot do what he did tonight. He was bad. And going into next season, he's going to have to show something next season. This is unacceptable. Coming off a terrible loss against the Bears last week. You ended this. A lot of people had y'all getting at least to the divisional round of the playoffs, being a force to be reckoned with. I always thought they were overrated. I haven't been fully sold on Jordan Love. He still has to show me more. Yes, you went into Jerry World last year and beat the living crap out of my Cowboys. I get it. But in the second half of that Niners game in the division round, he was terrible. Awful. And again this year, in this playoff game, he was awful. Granted, all of his playoff games have been on the road, but that is not an excuse to play as bad as he played today. He is single-handedly the reason why the Packers lost this football game. Shout out to the Green Bay Packers defense. They did exceptionally well. They did a good job containing Jalen Hurts and not letting him get out of the pocket for the most part. He was able to break a few here and there, but specifically in the second half, they only scored 12 points. So I think the Packers did good enough to be able to win this football game. But their quarterback didn't show up. And the Philadelphia Eagles, they got a win, and it seems like they are going to be playing the winner between the Rams and the Minnesota Vikings tomorrow night. And I would not be surprised next week if the Eagles go home based off the way they played today. Offensively, they have got to play better, specifically in the pass game. Saquon Barkley is going to do his thing. Saquon Barkley is their best player on offense. And they are going to ride him, which they would be dumb not to, but I understand Jalen Hurts is coming off a concussion. But he has to uplift his game. Because whoever wins that game between the Vikings and the Rams, it is going to be an offensive duel. And he's going to need to be able to match the offensive firepower of either of them two teams. And something tells me that Jalen Hurts is not going to be able to do it. Specifically if they match up against the Vikings. Because the Vikings have a better defense than the Rams. But either way, they're going to have to score points. Because both of those teams are going to score points. So the Eagles has got to step it up, or they're going to get a very, 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 very early exit. And you're going to be hearing a lot of noise about Nick Sirianni's job if the Eagles look as flat as they did next week. And the final game that we are going to be talking about is the Bills versus the Broncos. Not really much to take about this game. Bo Nix and Sean Payton, the regime, second season as a coach. Bo Nix's first year. You're going up against Josh Allen, the juggernaut, the number 2 seed at Orchard Park. This is what I expected. This game was literally exactly what I expected. The first half, the Bills on offense, they seemed a little shaky. They needed to settle in a little bit. The very first drive, Bo Nix goes down the field and throws a 40-yard bomb, and I'm sitting there like, we might have a ball game. But the Broncos seemed to couldn't muster anything offensively after that opening drive that they had. And then in the second half for the Bills, the floodgates just opened. Josh Allen began to do Josh Allen things. Josh Allen was 20 for 26, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. James Cook, he was carrying the ball well. He had 23 carries for 120 yards, average 5.2 yards per carry. Josh Allen had 8 rushes for 46 yards, 5.8 yards per carry. Then Ty Johnson, their backup running back, had 9 carries for 44 yards, average 4.9 yards a carry. Super efficient. They didn't knock their socks off receiving-wise, but they made plays when they needed to make plays. From the box score, Keon Coleman, he caught a 2-point conversion. Ty Johnson caught a touchdown. Curtis Samuel caught a touchdown. They all made plays when they needed to make plays. In the second half, the floodgates opened. Literally. The Bills scored 21 points in the second half. And Bo Nix and the guys just seemed to couldn't muster anything. They ran the ball really decently well. Not specifically, Javonte Williams had 7 carries for 29 yards, average 4.1 yards a carry. And overall as a team, they had 4.6 yards a carry. But Bo Nix's stat line here, he was 13 for 22, 144 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. He had a QBR 93. It's nothing to slide at. But offensively, just Denver couldn't get anything going. I mean, they literally had no type of burst on offense after the opening drive. And at the end of the day, the Bills did what they've done all season, play great defense, and play hero ball with Josh Allen. Josh Allen's going to take over the show. And another key factor that kept the Broncos from winning this game, the Broncos had 18 minutes of time of possession. The Buffalo Bills had 41 minutes of possession time. That is insanity. You can't win in a national football game with that kind of lopsided time of possession. That is unacceptable time of possession. Third down efficiency, Denver was 2 for 9. Compared to the Bills' 8 for 15. Above 50%. The Broncos wasn't even close to 50%. And on fourth down, the Broncos were 1 for 3, and the Bills were 2 for 2. The Bills had 72 total plays, and the Broncos had 42. The Bills had 471 total yards of offense, and the Broncos had 224. That was the story of the game. They got manhandled offensively. Time of possession. They just got manhandled today. And it's not a slight against the Broncos. Their future is bright. They have their quarterback. They have the coach. They have the offensive line. They have the defense. They just need to get some more weapons at the wide receiver position. I would definitely go after a running back. Maybe boost up the defensive side of the ball just a little bit. But their future is very bright. It's a very competitive division. I imagine the Raiders is fixing to draft a quarterback. Justin Herbert and the Chargers, they got Jim Harbaugh, so they're not going anywhere. And obviously, the big dogs are still in the division in the Kansas City Chiefs. But it's a good learning experience for Bo Nix to get his feet wet in the playoffs. And they're going to be interested to see next season. And for the Bills, it's going to be Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson. I want to call this the who is going to win it bowl. I know that sounds cliche. I need to find a better word for it. But the winner of this ball game, their legacy's on the line. For Lamar Jackson, if he loses this game, he possibly could win his third MVP and still can't get it done in the playoffs. For Josh Allen, this is easily the easiest path he is ever going to get to making it to a Super Bowl. You're going to be up against a Ravens team who defensively has a terrible pass defense. You match up very well against them. You got shellacked earlier in the season, 35-10 by the Ravens. But this week, next week, you're going to be more well prepared. And then you could have a date with the Kansas City Chiefs at their weakest that they've ever been in your tenure since you were a Buffalo Bill. And you have a chance to take that franchise to a Super Bowl. That is what is on the line for Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. It is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. If I was a betting man and I had to put money down on who is going to win that game next weekend, I'm putting my money on the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. I love Lamar. Something is telling me Lamar Jackson is about to have another stinker next week. I feel it. Lamar was sensational last night. But it's about moments. And historically, so far in the postseason, Josh Allen's been that guy. He shows up when it needs to matter. I want Lamar Jackson to prove me wrong. I want a juggernaut type battle next week. I want that game, whoever wins that game, I want them to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I don't want to see Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again this year. I'm rooting for both of them. I want to see them both, either one of them, playing in New Orleans in the Super Bowl at Caesars Superdome. They're capable. But if I had my money on the line and I had to bet my life savings, I'm smashing it on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. We're going to have to wait to see. It's going to be an interesting matchup. And tomorrow night is going to be my favorite game of the whole wild card weekend. And it sucks that it had to be on a Monday night, the last game of the wild card weekend, but it's the best for last. Tomorrow we're going to have the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Los Angeles Rams. And I am going to be joining you again tomorrow to give my thoughts on that game. Be on the lookout from my review of the games that did occur from yesterday. I am currently editing the video as we speak, and you will see this video for these games probably more than likely on Tuesday. Guys, if you enjoyed my another daily analysis with me from the wild card weekend, be sure to tune in to my review for tomorrow night's game for Monday night and for the games in the divisional round. I will also be giving you my picks for these games, and be on the lookout for that too. If you enjoyed my video, please do not hesitate to drop a like on the video, comment. Do you agree with my thoughts on these games and analysis, or do you disagree with me? Do you believe that the game has against Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen next week has as much weight on it as I think it does? Do you think that Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are good enough to, or do you think Jalen Hurts and them are good enough to come out as flat as they did next week and come out with a dub against whoever they play against the Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams? Just let me know that down below in the comments below. Anything, I accept any type of feedback. All type of feedback is welcome. And last but not least, if you enjoyed yours truly, do not hesitate to hit that subscribe button and to tap that notification bell to get notified when all my videos go live. If you love this type of content in sports videos, I have all of them in my playlist down below in the link in the description. Also, if you love any type of pop culture content, trailer reactions, Marvel, DC, Star Wars, those playlists are in the description as well. Thank you guys for joining me on another episode of the show. It's been a blast being with you guys, and I will see you on the next one. Peace, love, and positivity always, y'all. See ya.